Now we're going to talk about the product that we have today, and I'm going to go over the process and how I chose the product and how I'm going to use it when I arrange. So over here we have our base foliage that we're going to use, and we're using this beautiful blueberry before the berries are actually ripe. The berries give your arrangement a really nice texture, and you can see in the leaves of the blueberry that there's a lot of color variation. There's a nice burgundy edge and then a really nice pretty green in the center. And then these berries sort of have a nice silvery color to them, which will really pop off the palette that we have today, this sort of pink to dark burgundy. So over here we have one of our favorite plants. It's called agonis. And it's a really great dark color contrast. If you're using lighter flowers to really just pop them off of, it becomes a nice canvas for lighter flowers. And the texture is really great. It has a sort of grassy, wild, feral look. And these are going to be our base foliage, and that's what we're going to use to really start to create our shape and our structure when we start building our arrangement. Now, when I start buying for flowers, I always try to find one flower that I get inspired by that has a really nice variation of color. And the flower that I actually found that I love is this beautiful peony. It's called Lady Gay, and you can only buy it here really. It's not growing that often. It's so beautiful. As you can see, it has such a nice light outside, and it really fades to sort of like this dark maroon, deep fuchsia in the center. It's a really nice yellow pop, and the shape is really pretty too. So it does look like a nice, big, beautiful, full statement flower. So when I saw this at the market today, this is actually what inspired me to really choose this palette. So the whole arrangement's really gonna be based on this one flower. And speaking of color variation, when I'm buying, I'm really gonna try to buy flowers that really have a lot of this color in it. So I have this beautiful clematis here, this dark burgundy clematis, and that's really gonna pull the center of this into this flower. These really pretty ranunculus, which also have a really nice variation, you know, a nice dark outer edge and a really pretty light center. I have this gorgeous sweet pea here that is really gonna bring in sort of this light poppy pop that's inside of this. For a really nice delicate touch, we have this gorgeous lily of the valley that is really going to bring in sort of this lavender touch that you can really see between the dark and the light in these petals. We have a really beautiful clematis here, which has more of like this lavender in it. For another dark pop and for gesture, I chose this scabiosa. It's really, really dark. It's a really nice way to really punctuate your arrangement. So definitely get inspired by one thing and really start to think about color, but also start to think about shape as well. You really want to think about 4 different things. You want to think about getting your base green, whatever you're going to use to create your structure. Then you want to get your really beautiful specialty flowers. So we have the peonies here. We have another peony here as well. That's just a little bit brighter than this, but I think these two complement each other really, really nicely. This one's obviously a little bit more feminine and bright. You want to think about a nice filler flower. That's where we use our roses for. It's like really pretty roses that also have a nice color variation. We have these beautiful secret garden roses that open up really, really big you can get them at most flower markets. You want to think about texture. And that's why we have this delphinium, and just any type of really pretty loose wild flower you can use as a really nice texture. We have grass here that we would use at the very, very end. Some of this really pretty yarrow, which could be a really nice texture. And then at the very, very end, we'll pop in some really interesting elements that add like a nice gestural shape. So also like this clematis could also be used as a nice gestural shape. This scabiosa, this really pretty allium, which has a really nice color variation too. As you can see, everything that I'm really thinking about is color. There's almost every color that's in this flower and this peony is also in these tiny little petals in this allium. So really just look at that. Pay attention to that when you're at the market. Just put things together, just get a shelf together and really think about how color is really gonna move. And then when I'm doing color transition, I'm really gonna go from 2 sides of the spectrum. So speaking of star flowers, I also have this other really beautiful peony, which I'm not gonna use that many of because it is so cumbersome and heavy. But I just think that these 2 flowers and everything that I have here, going from dark to light, when I show you how to do transition, it's all gonna make sense. It's all gonna come together. So when you're just starting out and you're doing a smaller arrangement and you don't wanna spend tons of money on tons of product, I would say try to find one flower that's a really beautiful star flower. Like this, any one of these peonies would work, or any peony that you have available this time of year. And then really try to find one type of green. These would work. You could really use any type of green, even just go out into the woods and pick some branches. Like any type of green that has an interesting shape would work. So one base green, one star flower, maybe one filler flower, like a beautiful rose, and then try to find one or two different types of texture that you can really just pull the whole thing together with. And then at the very, very end, if you want to add something that just makes it a little different and a little cool, maybe pick like a piece of fruit that you really like that you can incorporate into your arrangement. Or like I have these really pretty pitcher plants here that I'm just going to tuck in at the very, very end, just to give it that element of surprise. It's something really cool. Try to find colors that work together. Even if you're just starting out, you could do something that's a little more monochromatic instead of just getting colors all over the spectrum that just sort of polka dot your arrangement.